The acceptance letter felt like fire in my hands. MIT, full scholarship, PhD program in computer science with a specialization in artificial intelligence. I stared at the words, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not here, not in front of him. What's that? Derek snatched the paper from my fingers before I could react, his eyes scanning it with that familiar sneer already forming on his lips. My older brother, golden child, family favorite, the one who could do no wrong, stood there in our parents' living room in his wrinkled t-shirt and sweatpants, the same outfit he'd been wearing for 3 days straight. MIT, he laughed, that cruel bark that had haunted me through 2 lifetimes. They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel now, aren't they? What, did you lie on your application? Because we both know you're not smart enough for MIT. I said nothing. I'd learned that lesson the hard way in my first life. Anything I said would be twisted, used against me, weaponized by my mother, who was already emerging from the kitchen, drawn by Derek's mocking laughter like a shark to blood in the water. What's going on? Mom asked, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked at Derek first, always Derek first, her precious son. Emma got into some PhD program at MIT, Derek said, waving my acceptance letter like it was a piece of trash. Can you believe it? Must be one of those diversity admits they're doing now, lowering standards to meet quotas. The words should have hurt. In my first life, they had destroyed me. I'd let Derek's constant belittling convince me I wasn't good enough, that my dreams were stupid, that I should be grateful for whatever scraps of approval my family threw my way. I'd watched him coast through a business degree at a mediocre state school, failing half his classes, getting jobs through dad's connections only to get fired within months, while I'd been told my passion for computer science was unfeminine and unrealistic. But that was before. Before the car accident that killed me at 28. Before I woke up in my 18-year-old body on the morning of my high school graduation, with every painful memory of the next decade intact. Give that back, I said calmly, extending my hand. Derek held it above his head, grinning. At 6'2", he towered over my 5'4" frame. What are you going to do, jump for it? Come on, little Emma, let's see you try. Derek, honey, don't tease your sister, Mom said absently. But she was smiling. She always smiled when Derek tormented me, like it was some cute sibling bonding instead of systematic psychological abuse. I'm not teasing. I'm trying to save her from embarrassment. She's going to get there and fail out in the first semester. Computer science? Emma? He looked at Mom for confirmation of how ridiculous this was. She can barely use her phone without asking for help. That had been true in my first life. I deliberately played dumb about technology around my family because every time I showed competence, Derek would accuse me of showing off and Mom would lecture me about not making my brother feel bad. So I'd hidden my abilities, made myself small and unthreatening, and suffocated my own potential to keep the peace. Never again. Actually, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest, I taught myself Python, Java, C++, and JavaScript. I built 3 apps that are currently in the App Store. One of them has over 50,000 downloads. My senior project on machine learning applications in healthcare won the state science fair and is being considered for a patent. But you wouldn't know that because you've never once asked me about my interests or my achievements. The room went silent. Derek's smile faltered. Mom's eyes narrowed. Don't get uppity, Emma, Mom warned. It's not attractive. And it's certainly not going to help you at MIT when you're surrounded by people who are actually smart. People like Derek? I asked sweetly. Who failed Introduction to Economics twice and had to switch majors 3 times before barely graduating with a 2.1 GPA in general studies. Derek's face flushed red. That's because the professors had it out for me. And anyway, grades don't matter in the real world. It's about connections, networking, social intelligence, things you'll never have. Is that why you've been fired from 4 jobs in 2 years? I asked. Social intelligence? That's enough! Mom's voice cracked like a whip. How dare you speak to your brother that way? After everything this family has done for you? everything they'd done for me. In my first life, that guilt had been my chains. They'd fed me, clothed me, kept a roof over my head, the bare minimum required by law, and acted like I owed them my entire existence for it. Meanwhile, Derek got a new car at 16, his college tuition fully paid, an apartment in the city, and a loan of $50,000 to start a business that failed within 6 months. A loan that was never expected to be repaid. I got a used laptop for Christmas one year, Derek's old one that barely functioned, and was told I should be grateful they thought of me at all. "You're right, Mom," I said, plucking the acceptance letter from Derek's now slack grip. "I apologize. I shouldn't have brought up Derek's academic struggles. That was unkind of me." She blinked, surprised by my sudden capitulation. "Well, good. I'm glad you see reason. I'll be moving to Cambridge in August," I continued, carefully folding the letter and putting it in my pocket, away from Derek's reaching hands. "MIT has offered me a full scholarship plus a generous stipend for living expenses, so I won't need any financial support from the family. Thank you for everything you've done for me up until this point." The words were polite, formal, final. A closing of doors. Derek recovered his bravado. "You'll be back within a year, begging Dad for money when you realize you can't hack it. And don't expect any of us to bail you out when you fail." I smiled, and it must have been a strange smile because Derek actually took a step back. "Don't worry," I said softly. "I would never ask this family for anything ever again." I walked upstairs to my room, my small, cramped room with its hand-me-down furniture and broken blinds. So different from Derek's spacious suite with its king-size bed and gaming setup that cost more than a semester of community college, and closed the door quietly behind me. Then I sat on my bed and let myself remember, let myself feel all of it. The memories hit me in waves like they always did when I was alone. 10 years of my first life, playing out behind my eyes with perfect, painful clarity. I'd gone to community college instead of MIT. Derek had mocked my acceptance letter so viciously, and Mom and Dad had expressed so much doubt about my ability to succeed that I'd convinced myself they were right. I'd chosen the safe path, the path that wouldn't upset anyone, the path that kept me small and invisible. I'd gotten my associate degree in computer science and taken a job as a junior developer at a small firm making $40,000 a year. It was good money for someone with my education, but Derek, who was bouncing between sales jobs and failed entrepreneurial ventures, made sure everyone knew I was wasting my potential, that I should have aimed higher, that my fear of failure was pathetic. When I'd finally saved enough to go back to school for my bachelor's degree at 23, Dad had refused to co-sign my student loans. "You're an adult now, Emma. Figure it out yourself." Besides, Derek needs help with his new business venture. Another $50,000 down the drain for Derek's artisanal kombucha company that lasted 8 months. I'd taken out private loans at brutal interest rates, worked 2 jobs while taking classes full-time, graduated with honors at 26 with $70,000 in debt, exhausted and burnt out, my health deteriorating from stress and lack of sleep. Derek, meanwhile, had moved back home at 25, unemployed again, and Mom had welcomed him with open arms. "He's going through a hard time," she'd said when I'd asked why Derek got to live rent-free while I was drowning in debt. "Family helps family. Why are you always so selfish, Emma?" I'd gotten a better job after my bachelor's degree. $70,000 a year. I'd been so proud. I'd called Mom to share the good news. "That's nice, dear," she'd said distractedly. "Listen, your father and I need to talk to you about something. Derek has an incredible opportunity to invest in a tech startup, but he needs about $20,000 to buy in. Since you're doing so well now, we thought you could help your brother out. Consider it a family investment." When I'd said no, I had student loans, I was barely making ends meet in expensive Boston, I was trying to save for a security deposit on an apartment. The freeze-out had begun. Calls went unreturned. Invitations to family events dried up. On the rare occasions I did visit, I was treated like an unwelcome guest in my own childhood home. Derek's startup had failed spectacularly within a year. He'd lost everything and declared bankruptcy. Mom and Dad had immediately given him another $40,000 to get back on his feet. I'd been 27 when I'd gotten the call. Mom's voice syrupy and false. "Emma, honey, we need to talk about your grandmother." Grandmother Rose had been my only ally in the family. She'd seen through Derek's charm and Mom's manipulation. She'd encouraged my interest in technology, slipping me programming books and telling me stories about the women who'd worked as human computers during World War II. In my first life, she'd been in a nursing home, and I'd visited her every week, despite my family's disapproval. "She's not doing well," Mom had said. "The doctors say she might not have much time left. She keeps asking for you, but Emma, the nursing home is very expensive. We're considering moving her to a state facility, but you know how those places are. If you could maybe contribute to her care just a few hundred a month." I'd been stupid enough to believe them. I'd been sending $500 a month for 8 months, money I desperately needed for my own bills, for my own survival. Until I'd called the nursing home directly to ask about visiting hours and discovered that my grandmother had died 3 months earlier. My family had been pocketing the money, using my grief and guilt to extract money from me to fund Derek's lifestyle. When I'd confronted them, Dad had actually laughed. "So what? She was our mother. That money would have been ours anyway when she died. You're just mad because you finally figured out you're not as smart as you think you are." I'd stopped speaking to them after that. Cut all contact, changed my number. It had been too late, though. The damage was done. I was emotionally destroyed, financially struggling, isolated, and alone. I'd been driving home from work one rainy evening, tired from a 12-hour day, when the truck ran the red light. I'd died on impact, or so I assumed. One moment I was swerving, the next I was gasping awake in my childhood bed on graduation morning, my high school diploma sitting on my desk, my acceptance letter from MIT buried under a stack of college brochures for community colleges that Mom had helpfully collected for me. For 3 days, I'd thought I was losing my mind. I'd tested my memories obsessively, looked up news articles that hadn't happened yet, checked the dates on my phone over and over again. But it was real. I was really here, really 18 again, with 10 years of brutal wisdom and a second chance. A second chance I was not going to waste. I spent the summer preparing. In my first life, I'd been timid, eager to please, desperate for my family's approval. This time, I knew the truth. I would never get their approval. Nothing I did would ever be good enough because the problem wasn't my achievements, it was that I wasn't Derek. So I stopped trying to please them. I got a job at a local tech company doing web development, leveraging my decade of experience in a resume that technically only showed high school graduation. They'd been skeptical until I'd demonstrated my skills in the interview, building a functional web app in 30 minutes that did exactly what they needed. I was hired on the spot at $25 an hour. I worked 50-hour weeks that summer, saving every penny. I avoided my family as much as possible, claiming I was always at work or studying. It wasn't hard. They barely noticed my absence. Derek was home, unemployed and aimless as he'd been in the first timeline, and he monopolized all of Mom and Dad's attention with his grand plans and elaborate excuses for why none of his job applications were panning out. "The economy is rigged against people like me," I heard him tell Dad one evening. I was passing by the living room on my way to my room, invisible as always. "These companies want robots, not creative thinkers. They want people who'll just follow orders, not innovators." "You're absolutely right, son," Dad agreed. "You're too talented for these corporate drone positions. You need something that challenges you, that values your unique perspective." I wondered if they'd say the same things in 8 years when Derek was 30 and still unemployed, still living at home, still blaming everyone but himself for his failures. Probably. They'd certainly never held him accountable before. I also started documenting everything. Every snide comment, every put-down, every instance of blatant favoritism. I kept a journal, backed up to an encrypted cloud server I'd set up. Insurance, in case I ever needed it. In July, Mom announced that she and Dad were taking Derek on a trip to Europe. "A graduation present," she explained over dinner. "He's worked so hard these past 4 years. He deserves a celebration." "What about Emma?" Grandmother Rose's voice was sharp. She'd come for dinner, her first visit in months. At 85, she was still sharp as a tack, her eyes missing nothing. "She graduated too. She's going to MIT. Doesn't she deserve a celebration?" Mom waved a hand dismissively. "Emma's fine. She doesn't need constant validation like some people. Besides, the trip is already booked. There's no room for her." Then perhaps you should have considered both your children when making plans, Grandmother Rose said coldly. But I suppose Emma is used to being an afterthought in this family. Mother, that's not fair, Dad protested weakly. We love both our children equally. Then why is Derek getting a $10,000 trip to Europe while Emma gets nothing? Grandmother Rose demanded. Emma is getting a full scholarship to MIT, Mom said, her voice tight with irritation. I think that's celebration enough. And frankly, Mother, I don't appreciate you coming into my home and criticizing my parenting. We've done our best with what we have. Grandmother Rose stood up, her movement stiff with age and anger. Your best has always been rather selective, hasn't it? She turned to me. Emma, dear, walk me to my car. Outside in the driveway, she took my hand. Her skin was papery thin, covered in age spots, but her grip was strong. You're going to do great things, she said quietly. Don't let them convince you otherwise. Don't let them make you small. In my first life, these had been some of the last words she'd said to me before her health declined. She'd died while I was in my second year of community college, and I'd been too broke to travel home for the funeral. Derek had used the inheritance she'd left me, $20,000, to pay off his credit card debt, and my parents had let him, saying Grandma would have wanted to help him. This time would be different. Grandma, I said carefully, I need to tell you something important. I told her everything. Not about the rebirth, that would sound insane, but about my fears, about the pattern of abuse I could see clearly now, about my plans to completely separate myself from my parents and Derek once I left for MIT. I told her I was worried about her, about what might happen when I wasn't around to visit, about the nursing home I knew they'd eventually put her in. She listened, her eyes growing sadder but not surprised. I've seen it too, she admitted. The way they treat you versus Derek. I've tried to intervene, but your mother has always resented me. She thinks I favor you, and she's not entirely wrong, but I favor you because you're the only one who visits me out of genuine love, not obligation or expectation of inheritance. I'll always visit you, I promised, no matter where I am or what I'm doing. You're the only family I have. She cupped my cheek with one gnarled hand. And you're the only grandchild I'm proud of. Emma, I want to give you something. She pressed an envelope into my hand. This is information about a trust I've set up. When I pass, and don't argue, dear, we both know I'm not getting any younger. You'll inherit my house, my savings, and my investment portfolio. Everything except a token amount I have to leave to your mother by law. I've made it ironclad. They can't contest it, and they can't touch it. Grandma, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I won't have you struggling because I left money to people who'll waste it on that useless boy. Promise me you'll use it wisely. Get your education. Build your life. Be happy. That's all I've ever wanted for you. I hugged her then and cried because I knew what was coming. In my first timeline, she'd died within 18 months. I was determined to change that if I could, but if I couldn't, at least this time I'd make sure her wishes were honored. I promise, I whispered. August arrived hot and humid. I packed my belongings, which fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack, and loaded them into my car. The car was another difference from my first timeline. Back then, I'd had to take a bus to Cambridge because I couldn't afford a car. This time, I'd saved $6,000 over the summer and bought a reliable used Honda Civic. My ticket to freedom. The family gathered in the driveway to see me off. Mom and Dad looked vaguely uncomfortable, like they knew they should feel something about their daughter leaving, but couldn't quite muster genuine emotion. Derek looked smug. Good luck at MIT, he said, his tone making it clear he expected me to fail. Try not to embarrass the family name too much when you flunk out. Derek, Dad said mildly, that's not nice. I'm just being realistic, Dad. Emma's never been good under pressure. Remember when she cried during her essayat? I had cried during my essayats. In my first life, I'd been so anxious about disappointing my family, so terrified of not being good enough that I'd had a panic attack in the middle of the math section. I'd still scored a 1480 out of 1600. Derek had scored an 1100 and needed extended time and multiple retakes to get even that. This time, I'd scored a perfect 1600. I hadn't told them. I'll keep that in mind, I said pleasantly. Goodbye, Derek. Good luck with your job search. His smile curdled. He'd been applying to positions for 3 months with no success. At least I'm not running away from my problems, he shot back. No, you're still living with them, I agreed, glancing meaningfully at our parents. I hugged my mother briefly. She stood stiff and unyielding in my arms and shook my father's hand. Then I got in my car and drove away without looking back. I was free. MIT was everything I'd dreamed of, and more. The campus buzzed with intellectual energy, with people who were passionate about learning, who valued knowledge and innovation and creative problem solving. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the weird girl who liked computers. I was normal. I belonged. My first year was intense. PhD programs didn't mess around, and MIT's computer science program was notoriously rigorous. But I had advantages my classmates didn't. I'd already spent a decade in the field. I knew which technologies would become important, which research directions would bear fruit, which professors were doing groundbreaking work. I positioned myself perfectly. I joined Dr. Sarah Chen's lab. In my first timeline, Dr. Chen had gone on to pioneer revolutionary work in neural networks and AI ethics. She'd won a Turing Award and founded a company that was acquired by Google for $3 billion. She'd done it without me, but this time, I was going to be part of it from the beginning. Your background is interesting, Dr. Chen said during our first meeting. She was a small woman in her 40s with sharp eyes behind stylish glasses. Your undergraduate transcript is... Well, you don't have one yet since you're entering with your high school diploma, but your application materials showed an unusual depth of practical knowledge. The apps you built, the research you did. Where did you learn all that? Self-taught, mostly, I said, which was technically true. I've been passionate about AI and machine learning since I was 14. I read every paper I could find, took online courses, built projects in my spare time. Computer science is more than just a career interest for me. It's my calling, she smiled. Then you'll fit right in here. My lab works on the intersection of machine learning and human decision-making with a particular focus on ethical AI development. Does that align with your interests? Perfectly. In my first life, I'd worked for 3 years at a company that used AI algorithms for hiring decisions. The algorithms had been biased, discriminatory, and harmful. I'd seen firsthand the damage that unethical AI could cause. I believe the most important work in AI right now isn't making it more powerful, it's making it more fair. Then welcome to the team, Dr. Chen said. I threw myself into the work. While my classmates struggled to adjust to the pace and rigor of graduate school, I thrived. I published my first paper by December, a meta-analysis of bias in hiring algorithms that made waves in the field. I presented at a major conference in January. By the end of my first year, I'd co-authored 4 papers and had a standing offer from Google for a summer internship. And through it all, my family was blessedly silent. No calls, no emails, no contact. It was glorious. Until the end of my second year when Mom finally reached out. The email was breezy and casual, as if we talked every week instead of having been completely estranged for 2 years. Dear Emma, hope MIT is going well. We're all so proud of you. Derek has some exciting news. He's finally found his calling in sales and is doing wonderfully at a medical device company. He'd love to tell you all about it. Also, your grandmother is moving into an assisted living facility next month. She's insisting she's fine, but the doctor thinks it's time. It's quite expensive, but we're making it work. Anyway, let's catch up soon. Love, Mom. I stared at the email for a long time. In my first timeline, this was exactly how it had started. The casual mention of Grandma's care, the emphasis on the expense, the groundwork being laid for the eventual request for money. But this time, I had something they didn't know about. I'd been in contact with Grandmother Rose this entire time. We talked every week. I visited during breaks. I knew she was moving into assisted living, and I knew exactly why. She'd been diagnosed with early-stage dementia, the kind that progressed slowly but inevitably. She was moving into the facility by her own choice, while she still had the mental capacity to make that decision. because she wanted to be somewhere safe and cared for when the decline accelerated. And she'd paid for it herself up front, with enough to cover 5 years of care. My family was about to try to scam me again, and I was going to let them dig their own grave. I called my mother. "Hi, Mom. Got your email. How's Grandma really doing?" Mom sighed dramatically. "Oh, Emma, it's been so hard. She's declining faster than we expected. Forgetting things, getting confused. The doctors say she needs round-the-clock supervision, but these facilities are outrageously expensive. $20,000 a month, can you imagine? $20,000 a month. 5 times what the facility actually cost." I felt my stomach turn. "That's awful," I said, injecting concern into my voice. "What are you going to do?" "Well, your father and I are covering most of it, of course. Family takes care of family." "But Emma, I know you're doing well at MIT, and I heard you had that internship at Google last summer. If you could maybe contribute a few $100s a month, it would help so much. I hate to ask, but it's for Grandma." In my first life, I would have said yes immediately. Guilt-ridden, desperate to prove I was a good person, willing to do anything to help my beloved grandmother. This time, I knew better. "I'll think about it," I said. "Let me check my budget and get back to you." "Of course, dear, no pressure. Although, every day we delay is another day she's struggling." I hung up and immediately called Grandma. "They're starting," I told her. "Right on schedule," she said dryly. She sounded tired but lucid. "Don't give them a penny, Emma. I mean it. I've taken care of everything. The facility is paid for, my care is arranged, and my will is updated and ironclad. When I'm gone, you'll be taken care of. Don't let them guilt you." "I won't," I promised. "But Grandma, we should think about what happens when they realize you're not actually declining as fast as they're telling people. What if they try to have me declared incompetent and take control of my finances?" She'd already thought of it. "I've already filed paperwork with my lawyer. I've been evaluated by 3 independent doctors who've certified I'm of sound mind. And I've put you down as my medical power of attorney and executor of my estate, effective immediately. The paperwork is filed with the court. They can't touch me, Emma. I've learned from decades of dealing with your mother. I know how to protect myself." I felt a surge of fierce love and pride. "You're amazing, Grandma. I'm old and cranky, and I'm not about to let my daughter steal from my granddaughter again. Now stop worrying about me and go back to your research. I want to be alive to see you get that PhD and rub it in your brother's unemployed face." Derek has a job now, apparently. "For how long? 6 weeks? 2 months? Don't waste your energy on him, Emma. Just focus on becoming everything they said you'd never be." It was good advice. The money requests from my mother escalated over the next 6 months. First, a few hundred a month for Grandma's care. Then 1,000 because unexpected medical expenses came up. Then 2,000 because the facility is threatening to discharge her if we can't keep up with payments. I sent nothing. Radio silence. The emails got more desperate, more manipulative. "Your grandmother is crying, asking why you won't help her. Derek has been sending money even though he can barely afford it. We never thought you'd abandon family like this." Each one made my blood boil, but I stayed strong. And sure enough, in month 7, the real request came. An email from Derek himself. "Hey, Emma, I know we haven't always gotten along, but I need your help. I've been working at MedTech Solutions for almost a year now, and I'm crushing it. Top salesperson 3 months running. But there's this incredible opportunity. A manager position just opened up, and it's mine if I want it. The only thing is, there's a buy-in. Not unusual in sales. You invest in your own inventory, your own client development budget, and you reap the rewards. It's $20,000, and it would change my life. I know you've been making bank at Google. Mom said you made like 100K last summer. Could you loan me the money? I'll pay you back double within a year. This is my big break, sis. Don't let me down." $20,000. The same amount they'd stolen from me in my first life by lying about Grandma's care. The same amount Grandma had left me in her will that they'd given to Derek. The symmetry was almost beautiful. I called Derek. I could hear the surprise in his voice when he answered. Emma, wow, it's been forever. I got your email, I said. About the manager position. Yeah, his voice brightened with greed. It's an amazing opportunity. I just need $20,000, I finished, for a buy-in. Derek, that's not how legitimate sales jobs work. That's a scam. If they're asking you to pay money to work for them, they're taking advantage of you. You don't know what you're talking about, he snapped. This is a real company. They're publicly traded. This is just how the industry works. What's the company called? I asked. I'll look them up. MedTech Solutions. I was already typing. Google search, company website, BBB listing. And there it was, dozens of complaints about predatory employment practices, pyramid scheme accusations, a class action lawsuit from former employees who'd lost their savings. The company was a mess, bleeding money, and scamming desperate job seekers into paying for inventory that didn't exist and client lists that were completely fabricated. Derek was about to lose $20,000 to a scam if anyone was stupid enough to give it to him. Derek, I said carefully, I'm looking at their website right now. They have an F rating with the Better Business Bureau. There's a lawsuit against them for fraud. They're not a legitimate company. You're just jealous because I'm finally succeeding, he shouted. You can't stand that I'm doing well. You never could. You always had to be the special one, the smart one. Well, guess what, Emma? Street smarts beat book smarts every time, and I'm going to be making six figures while you're still stuck in school. I'm not giving you money to fund a scam, I said flatly. Then don't. I don't need you anyway. Mom and Dad will help me. They actually believe in me, unlike you. He hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, and felt nothing but a grim satisfaction. In my first timeline, I hadn't been there to warn him. He'd lost $20,000, money our parents had borrowed against their home equity to give him, and the company had folded 3 months later. He'd never paid it back, and my parents had spent the next 5 years struggling with the debt. I wondered if they'd do it again, even with my warning on record. They did. I found out from Grandma 2 months later. Your parents took out a $30,000 loan to invest in Derek's manager position, she told me, her voice dripping with contempt. The company folded last week. Derek's out of work again and your parents are panicking about the debt. Your mother called me asking if I could help them with the payments. What did you tell her? I told her that I'm an old woman on a fixed income living in an assisted care facility, and if she'd managed her money better, instead of throwing it all at her useless son, she wouldn't be in this position. Then I hung up on her. Grandma's voice held a savage satisfaction. She hasn't called back. I couldn't help but smile. Grandma, you're my hero. I'm a cranky old woman who's tired of watching her daughter make the same stupid mistakes over and over again. But Emma, I need to tell you something. Her voice shifted, became more serious. I'm updating my will again. I'm leaving everything to you, the house, my savings, my investment portfolio. It's worth about $800,000 in total. I've set it up so that your mother gets exactly $1. That way she can't claim she was accidentally excluded. And I've written a letter explaining exactly why I'm disinheriting her, which will be read at the will reading. I want you to be prepared for the fallout. My chest felt tight. $800,000? I invested well over the years, and I want you to have it. Use it to finish your PhD without debt. Use it to start your life. Use it for anything you want, as long as it makes you happy. You're the only one who deserves it, Emma. Grandma, my voice cracked. Thank you for everything, for believing in me, for protecting me. Thank you for being someone worth protecting, she replied softly. Now stop crying and go cure cancer or invent the next iPhone, or whatever it is you brilliant young people do. Grandma passed away, in her sleep 6 months later, peacefully and without pain. I flew home for the funeral, my heart breaking but also grateful she'd gone gently. The funeral was a nightmare. Mom cried theatrically, dabbing at dry eyes. Dad stood stoic and uncomfortable. Derek looked bored and kept checking his phone. "It's so tragic," Mom wailed to the assembled guests. She was such a wonderful mother, and she was so proud of both her grandchildren, Emma at MIT and Derek in his new business venture. Derek had started another business, this one selling drop-shipped fitness equipment online. I gave it 6 months before it collapsed. After the burial, the lawyer gathered us for the reading of the will. The lawyer was a severe woman in her 60s named Patricia Brennan. She'd been Grandma's attorney for 20 years, and I suspected had drafted some very specific language at Grandma's request. "This is the last will and testament of Rose Margaret Sterling," Patricia began. She looked directly at my mother. Rose was very specific about her wishes and very clear about her reasoning. She had me record a video of her explaining her decisions while she was of sound mind and body, which I have here if anyone wishes to contest. Mom's face went pale. Patricia continued, "To my daughter, Catherine Sterling, I leave the sum of $1. To my son-in-law, Michael Sterling, I leave nothing, as he is not a blood relation and has no legal claim to my estate. To my grandson, Derek Sterling, I leave nothing." Derek jumped to his feet. "What? That's insane. She's leaving us nothing?" "Let me finish," Patricia said coldly. "To my granddaughter, Emma Sterling, I leave the entirety of my estate, including my home at 432 Maple Street, my investment portfolio currently valued at $650,000, my savings accounts totaling $150,000, and all personal property therein. The total estate value is approximately $800,000. The silence was deafening. Then Mom exploded. "This is outrageous." Mother was clearly not in her right mind. She had dementia. She was confused, easily manipulated. Emma must have coerced her into changing the will. "I'll contest this. I'll take this to court." Patricia pulled out a tablet and calmly pressed play. Grandma's face appeared on the screen, recorded just months before her death. She looked directly into the camera with perfect clarity. "To whom it may concern," Grandma said, her voice strong and steady. "I am Rose Margaret Sterling, and I am of sound mind and body. I have been evaluated by 3 independent physicians who will testify to my mental competence. I am making this recording to explain why I have chosen to disinherit my daughter Catherine and exclude her family, with one exception, from my will. For 35 years, I have watched Catherine show blatant favoritism to her son Derek while neglecting, belittling, and emotionally abusing her daughter Emma. I have watched her enable Derek's failures, fund his irresponsible ventures, and make excuses for his lack of ambition while holding Emma to impossible standards and offering her no support whatsoever. I have watched my daughter lie to Emma about my health and care needs in order to extract money from her. Yes, Catherine, I know about that. Emma told me everything, and I confirmed it with the nursing home. You told Emma I was dying and that you needed money for my care while I was perfectly healthy and my care was already fully funded. You stole from your own daughter, using me as bait. That is unforgivable. I have watched Derek fail at every endeavor he's attempted, and I have watched Catherine and Michael throw money at him that they don't have, enabling his complete lack of accountability. The fact that Derek is 35 years old, has never held a job for more than 8 months, and still lives with his parents speaks volumes about his character and their parenting. Emma, by contrast, is earning her PhD at MIT. She works hard, she's brilliant, she's kind, and despite everything her family has done to undermine her, she has succeeded. She is the only member of my family who has visited me regularly, called me weekly, and shown genuine love and care for me. She is the only one who deserves my support. So to be absolutely clear, I am leaving my estate to Emma because she has earned it through her character and her love. I am leaving Catherine $1 so that there is no question I intended to disinherit her. And I am leaving Derek nothing because he has been given more than enough already and squandered every opportunity. If you are watching this video, it means someone is contesting my will. Save yourself the money and the embarrassment. This will is ironclad, recorded while I was of sound mind, and I have multiple medical evaluations to prove my competence. You will not win. You never could win because you never deserved to. The video ended. My mother's face was purple with rage. Derek looked like he'd been slapped. Dad just stared at the floor. "Would anyone like to contest the will?" Patricia asked with professional calm. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at me with pure hatred. "You poisoned her against us. You turned our own mother against her family." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourselves. Every time you chose Derek over me. Every time you mocked my dreams and told me I wasn't good enough. Every time you took advantage of my love for Grandma to steal money from me. You built this, not me. I just finally stopped letting you get away with it." "You'll regret this," Derek snarled. "When you're alone and miserable with no family, you'll regret pushing us away." I looked at him, my brother who had tormented me my entire life, who had never once been happy for my success, who had laughed when I said I wanted to go to MIT. "Derek," I said calmly, "I have a family. I have friends, colleagues, mentors who value me and support me. I have people in my life who celebrate my victories instead of trying to tear me down. I had Grandma, and even though she's gone, I have her love and her belief in me. What I don't have, what I finally blessedly don't have, is you." I turned to my parents. I'm done. I'm done being your scapegoat, your backup bank account, your disappointing daughter. I'm done pretending we're a functional family when all you've ever done is hurt me. Grandma's estate will pay off my student loans and give me a financial foundation to build my life. The life she believed I deserved. I'm going to honor her memory by living well and being happy. Something none of you ever wanted from me. I walked out of that lawyer's office and never looked back. The next 3 years were the best of my life. I used part of Grandma's inheritance to pay off the modest student loans I'd accumulated and invested the rest. I focused entirely on my research, working with Dr. Chen to develop ethical frameworks for AI development that would eventually become industry standard. I defended my dissertation in my 5th year, a comprehensive analysis of bias in machine learning systems with practical frameworks for mitigation. It was published by MIT Press and became required reading in AI ethics courses across the country. I graduated with my PhD at 26, 3 years younger than I'd been when I died in my first life. Google offered me a position as a senior research scientist with a starting salary of $350,000 plus stock options. I accepted. Within a year, I was leading a team of 15 researchers. Within 2 years, I was promoted to principal scientist. Within 3 years, my work had been cited over 10,000 times, and I'd been invited to keynote at major AI conferences around the world. I bought a beautiful condo in Palo Alto with a view of the mountains. I traveled to Japan, New Zealand, Sweden, and South Africa. I dated, fell in love, had my heart broken, and fell in love again. I built a life full of people who valued me, respected me, and celebrated my success. I never once heard from my family, until 5 years after Grandma's funeral, when I received an email from Derek. "Hey, Emma," it started in that false, casual tone he'd always used when he wanted something. "Long time no talk. Hope you're doing well. I'm reaching out because I'm in a tough spot and I thought maybe you could help. I know we haven't been close, but we're still family, right? I lost my apartment and I'm crashing on a friend's couch. I just need a small loan to get back on my feet. $5,000 would change my life. I know you're making good money now at Google. I promise I'll pay you back. Please, Emma, I'm desperate." I stared at the email for a long moment. In my first life, if Derek had sent me something like this, I would have agonized over it, felt guilty, maybe even sent the money despite knowing I'd never see it again. This time, I felt nothing but a distant pity. I wrote back, "Derek, I wish you the best in finding a solution to your situation. However, I won't be providing financial assistance. I encourage you to seek help from the family members who spent 30 years enabling your poor decisions and teaching you that other people would always bail you out. Good luck." I hit send and blocked his email address. 2 months later, I received a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. When I opened it, it was Mom. "Emma, I can't believe you would abandon your brother when he needs you most. He's homeless. He's struggling. And you have so much money now, so much success. We know you're making $500,000 a year at Google. Would it kill you to help him? After everything we did for you, raising you, supporting you, you owe us. I read the message 3 times, feeling a surreal sense of detachment. They really believed this. They really thought that the bare minimum of parenting, not actively starving or beating me, meant I owed them my loyalty and my money for the rest of my life. I wrote back one final message. You're right that you raised me. You gave me food, shelter, and clothing, the legal minimum required by law. What you didn't give me was love, support, encouragement, or belief in my abilities. You spent 30 years telling me I wasn't good enough, that my dreams were stupid, that I would fail. You gave Derek every opportunity and me nothing but criticism. You taught me that I couldn't rely on family, that I had to earn everything myself, that nobody would ever help me. You taught me to be independent, self-sufficient, and ruthless about protecting my own interests. Congratulations, I learned those lessons well. Derek is homeless because he never learned to take responsibility for his own life. He never learned because you never taught him. You enabled his failures, funded his bad decisions, and taught him that someone would always clean up his messes. You created the situation he's in now. I owe you nothing. I owe Derek nothing. The only person I owed anything to was Grandma Rose, and I honored that debt by becoming exactly what she believed I could be. Do not contact me again. I blocked her on every platform I could think of, changed my phone number, made sure my home address was unlisted. I built a wall between myself and them that was absolute and impenetrable, and I lived my life. 7 years after my PhD graduation, I was invited to give the keynote address at MIT's commencement ceremony. It was one of the highest honors in academia, being asked to inspire the next generation of graduates from one of the world's most prestigious institutions. I stood at the podium, looking out at thousands of faces in the audience, and told my story. Not all of it. Some wounds were too personal to share, but enough. I talked about being underestimated, about having my dreams mocked by the people who were supposed to support me, about the choice to believe in myself even when nobody else did. The world will tell you that you're not good enough, I said. Sometimes the people who tell you that will be strangers. Sometimes they'll be colleagues or competitors. And sometimes, most painfully, they'll be family. People you love, people you want approval from, people whose opinions matter to you. But here's what I learned. Their doubt has nothing to do with your ability. Their mockery has nothing to do with your worth. When someone tells you that your dreams are stupid or that you'll never succeed, they're usually telling you about their own limitations, not yours. My PhD from MIT, the degree I was told I was too stupid to earn, led to a career beyond anything I imagined. But more than that, it led to freedom. The freedom to choose who I let into my life, the freedom to walk away from people who hurt me, the freedom to build a life on my own terms. So to the graduates here today, believe in yourself, work hard, take risks. And if someone in your life consistently tears you down instead of building you up, give yourself permission to let them go. You don't owe anyone access to your life, your success, or your peace. Not even family. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, at the reception, dozens of students approached me with tears in their eyes, thanking me for my words, telling me their own stories of family rejection and eventual triumph. And in the back of the room, I saw them. My parents, Derek. They'd somehow found out about the keynote and come, probably hoping to reconnect, to cash in on my success, to remind me that family is forever. I looked at them for a long moment. Derek looked older, worn down, his hair thinning and his face lined with bitterness. My parents looked smaller somehow, diminished. They'd aged badly, stress and financial struggle etched into every line of their faces. I felt nothing. No anger, no guilt, no obligation. They were strangers who had once hurt me, and I'd moved past them so completely they might as well have never existed. I turned away without acknowledging them and let security escort them out when they tried to approach me. That night, I went to dinner with Dr. Chen and a group of colleagues. We laughed, shared stories, celebrated each other's successes. This was my family now. People who had earned their place in my life through love and respect and genuine care. Later, alone in my hotel room, I thought about my first life. the girl I'd been, scared, desperate for approval, willing to shrink herself to fit into a family that would never value her. She'd died in a car accident at 28, exhausted and alone and convinced she'd failed. But she'd given me a gift, the knowledge of exactly how not to live. The clarity that comes from seeing your entire life laid out and recognizing all the moments where you chose wrong, where you let fear guide you instead of courage. In this life, I'd chosen differently at every turn. I'd chosen myself, and the result was a life beyond anything I'd imagined possible. I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to my literary agent. I'd been thinking about writing a book, a memoir about growing up in a toxic family and finding success despite them. Not a revenge story, but a survival story. A roadmap for anyone else trapped in similar circumstances, trying to figure out how to save themselves. The title came to me immediately. The Daughter They Dismissed, Finding Success After Family Rejection. I started writing, and the words flowed like water. All the pain, all the triumph, all the lessons learned. It poured out of me onto the page, cathartic and necessary and true. 3 months later, the book sold to a major publisher for a 7-figure advance. 6 months after that, it hit the New York Times bestseller list and stayed there for 43 weeks. It was translated into 30 languages. I did interviews with NPR, the New York Times, and appeared on talk shows. And with every interview, every appearance, every 5-star review from readers who saw their own stories in mine, I felt more healed, more free. Derek tried to contact me through a journalist writing a profile piece. He claimed I'd exaggerated the abuse, that our family had been normal and loving, that I was demonizing them for publicity. The journalist had done their research, though. They'd found my documentation, talked to Grandma Rose's lawyer, interviewed my childhood friends who'd witnessed the favoritism and cruelty. Derek's rebuttal was included in the article as a small sidebar, easily dismissed as the defensive protests of an exposed abuser. My parents tried to sue me for defamation. The lawsuit was thrown out within weeks. Truth is an absolute defense, and I had years of documentation to back up every claim in my book. They were ordered to pay my legal fees and issued a restraining order when they began harassing my publisher. And through it all, I kept moving forward. I was promoted to VP of AI research at Google. I was named to Forbes' 30 under 30 list, then their 40 under 40 list. I bought Grandma Rose's old house, the one I'd inherited, and renovated it into a beautiful space where I hosted dinner parties and holiday gatherings with my chosen family. I fell in love with a fellow researcher named James, a brilliant mathematician with kind eyes and a gentle soul who'd also come from a difficult family. We understood each other's trauma and respected each other's boundaries. When he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. On our wedding day, I stood in Grandma Rose's garden, surrounded by people who truly loved me and felt a completeness I'd never experienced in my first life. My dissertation advisor walked me down the aisle. Dr. Chen gave a toast that made me cry with laughter. My research team formed an honor guard as we left the ceremony. Derek sent a friend request on Facebook the morning of my wedding. I deleted it without a second thought. 10 years after my rebirth, I achieved something I'd never managed in my first life: complete and total peace. I had everything I'd ever wanted: meaningful work, financial security, genuine relationships, and the deep satisfaction of knowing I'd built it all myself. I was named a MacArthur Fellow, the so-called Genius Grant, for my work in AI ethics. The $625,000 award came with no strings attached, just recognition that my work was valuable and important. I donated half of it to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students from abusive families. Derek, I learned through the grapevine, was working at a call center making $15 an hour. He'd declared bankruptcy twice. He was still living with our parents, who were now in their 70s and struggling with their own debt and health problems. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall. I didn't need them to fail for me to succeed. Their struggles were simply the natural consequences of their own choices, playing out exactly as they'd always been destined to do. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a certain poetry to it. Derek had laughed at my college major, told me I'd never amount to anything, predicted I'd fail out of MIT within a semester. He'd been so confident in my inadequacy, so secure in his own superiority. And now I had a PhD from MIT, a VP position at one of the world's most powerful companies, a best-selling book, a MacArthur Fellowship, and a life full of love and purpose and joy. while he was unemployed, broke, and living in his childhood bedroom at 40 years old. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor. On the 10-year anniversary of my rebirth, though only I knew it was an anniversary, I went to visit Grandma Rose's grave. I brought flowers, sat on the grass beside her headstone, and told her everything. "I did it, Grandma," I said softly. "Everything you believed I could do, I did it. I got my PhD. I built a career. I wrote a book. I found love. I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy in a way I never was before." The wind rustled through the trees, and I imagined it was her voice telling me she was proud. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing me when nobody else did, for protecting me, for giving me the resources to build this life. I wouldn't be here without you." I stayed for an hour, just sitting in the sunshine, feeling grateful for second chances and old women who loved fiercely and the courage to choose yourself, even when it costs you everything. When I finally left, I felt lighter than I had in years. All the anger, all the resentment, all the pain of my first life, it was gone, healed, transmuted into something better. I'd won. Not because Derek had lost, though he had, but because I'd refused to let his mockery define me. I'd refused to let my family's cruelty make me small. I'd taken every doubt they'd ever expressed about me and used it as fuel to prove them wrong. And in doing so, I'd discovered something important. The best revenge isn't making your abusers suffer. It's building a life so good, so full, so successful that they become irrelevant. It's reaching a point where their opinions don't matter because you've surrounded yourself with people whose opinions do. It's being so genuinely happy that when they finally try to come crawling back, and they always do, you can look at them and feel nothing but pity. That was my revenge. That was my victory. Not Derek's unemployment or my parents' struggles, but my own complete and utter freedom from needing them at all. I drove home to my beautiful house where my husband was cooking dinner and my dog was waiting at the door, and my life was everything I'd ever dreamed it could be. And I lived happily ever after. Because sometimes the best stories aren't about the villain getting what they deserve. They're about the hero getting what she deserves instead. And I deserved all of this, every bit of it. Finally, after 2 lifetimes, I believed that.